Hi, I'm Cailey, a librarian here at Mentor Public Library.
And I'm Meg, also a librarian, and welcome to this week's edition of All Booked Up with Cailey and Meg, where each week we give you different book recommendations on a specific theme. This week, we thought we'd do something a little unique, and we're going to be looking at teen bestseller read-alikes. So the New York Times bestseller is extremely influential and gives you a good idea of what's really popular right now. So we're just going to take a look at some of the ones that are on there right now and then give you some good read-alike options for them.
Yes, especially because sometimes those bestsellers are hard to get your hands on. But if you're looking for something that's kind of similar, we're going to go with that. So for this, we specifically looked at the young adult bestsellers. And it should be a lot of fun. All the books we talk about today are going to be available for you through the library or online with your library card through Libby or Hoopla.
So, Cailey, what is our first bestseller that we're going to look at?
So our first bestseller is actually the new Shadowhunters series by Cassandra Clare. And the Shadowhunters books by Cassandra Clare have been super popular since the first one came out back in 2007. The Shadowhunters are a group that are dedicated to ridding the earth of demons. And the book series follows them through the ups, the downs, the romances, and the epic battles that take place. The original series, The Mortal Instruments, finished a few years back, but the Shadowhunters series has continued with a new series, and the second book of that just came out last month and has been on the bestseller list ever since. So it has renewed an interest in the Shadowhunters books as well as other books like it. So, do you have a read-alike?
I think I do, actually. So the one I chose was Left-Handed Booksellers of London by Garth Nix. Now, this author's been around for a while. He's been writing for years and years, but this one came out just last year, and it does kind of give me the same vibe as the Shadowhunter series. It's about a college freshman named Susan Arkshaw, and it's set in a slightly alternate universe London in 1983. And she's, an art student, but she's looking for her father because now she's turned 18. She never knew her father growing up, and she just has this desire to try and seek him out. So she begins doing that in earnest. And it even begins taking her into some dangerous situations. She's like just going to all these places, asking people for questions. One night she meets the very handsome Merlin.
Ooh.
And on the surface, him and even his family, they seem normal. They own a couple of bookstores. They run like bookshops around London. But as she gets to know him, there's another side to his family. They are actually a group of magical beings that know this alternate old world London that is full of magic. And they are like the police keepers of like the connections between the old world and the new world. So, just to make sure like the magical beings don't hurt the people in the modern world and vice versa. So they actually have this really interesting job, and she learns about this. And as she's learning about this, she kind of starts to have some more questions about her father, because there's kind of some things start popping up that remind her of memories she had and things like that. So maybe some things are connected in ways that, she didn't realize. So there's just a lot of fun to it. I like that it's set in the 80s. I think that's kind of fun. Like,
yeah, that's fun, the 80s.
Together, So I think if you like Cassandra Clare's series, I think this one might be good for you.
Excellent. That sounds like a lot of fun. Well, my read-alike for the Cassandra Clare series is called Fate of Flames by Sarah Raughley. And this is actually a trilogy. This is the first book in the trilogy, and it just came out within the last few years. And it's an excellent read-alike for Shadowhunters, I think. Years ago, massive beasts called phantoms began to terrorize the world. And at the same time, 4 girls were given element control: earth, fire, air, and water. And they are the ones who can fight the phantoms, and they are the Effigies. Their unique powers can only belong to one girl. So there can only be one fire effigy, one air effigy, one water effigy, so forth. And that gives me major Buffy the Vampire Slayer vibes, the chosen one.
Right, right, right.
And so when the fire effigy dies, Maya, who is our main character in this book, unexpectedly becomes the next fire effigy. And she's got this sort of chosen one thing going on where she's chosen to do this, but she's very reluctant to do it,
Right,
especially
right.
because, this is a huge responsibility.
Yeah.
She has these new powers, and she's expected to fight these crazy phantoms and protect all of the citizens, all the innocent people around her. And she also has to join this group of girls who have existing sort of bonds and problems with one another and stuff, and try to sort of bridge that together. And of course, there is a new villain on the scene. And I just think this book is a lot of fun because it brings in a lot of those like superhero kind of themes where it's like, almost like the origin stories of superheroes where they discover their powers and what they can do with them. But it adds in this sort of group element where you have to try to figure out how to work with the other people around you, and they have their own existing relationships that are not always great. And there's another element to this as well, is that this is taking place in a sort of modern day society, and so there's this celebrity element to the effigies. They have like TV appearances, and there's like online fandoms and things, and so they showcase their powers for celebrity purposes a lot of the time, not just for what they were intended. So the whole trilogy is now out, so I love when I can discover a new series and be like, oh, I can read it all right now.
Right.
So I think it's an awesome read alike if you like the Shadowhunters series.
Oh yeah, yeah, and definitely, like you said, just like almost binging a book series, So
Exactly.
I like that too. Awesome. All
So
right.
you have another bestseller.
Do, and this one actually is, when I looked into the numbers on this bestseller, it was kind of blew my mind a little bit.
Yeah.
So the next one I'm going to be talking about is One of Us is Lying by Karen McManus. And this came out originally in May of 2017. And it is still, at the time of this recording, it is still on the YA bestseller list. I think in total, it's like 160 plus weeks that it's been on the list. And just to give some context there, I was looking at the list. Nothing else on the list right now was published before 2020. So that just gives you that's a testament to how popular this book still is to
I
this day.
agree. And I think it's also impressive that it stayed on the list, even though it's not one of those ones that was like turned into a show or a movie yet.
Oh, I figured, yeah, surely Netflix or something by now, but no, yeah. And it's her debut, was her debut novel as well. So she's come out with another, like a sequel to this since then. And she's also written a book called The Cousins, which actually I talked about a couple months ago on this show. So yeah, she's very popular now. And she really writes great suspense, page turning type stories. One of Us is Lying specifically is about 5 high schoolers who walk into detention and only 4 come out. So, totally crazy, like Breakfast Club meets, total mystery, Knives Out type of thing. So yeah, that's our bestseller. What's your first read alike, Cailey?
So I will say first though that we did do teen suspense not that long ago, and I think that a lot of those fall right in line with this too.
Exactly.
So if the ones we talk about now don't, strike your fancy, make sure you look up that video too. My first read alike for One of Us is Lying is called Nobody Knows But You by Anica Mrose Rissi. And this is one of those ones that gives you sort of creepy vibes right from the get-go, like something's off. So Lainey and Kayla became best friends at Camp Kavanagh. Their first day, super bonded right away. And Lainey is now on trial for murder.
All right.
Specifically for the murder of her on-again, off-again boyfriend, Jackson. And as the trial is approaching, Kayla is spending time writing letters to Lainey because she thinks she's innocent. But these are sort of letters more to sort her thoughts out, not that she actually intends to send. And she recounts how the two of them bonded instantly once they got to Camp Kavanagh, and how they just were inseparable right from the get-go, until Lainey started to see Jackson. And he sort of threw a wrench into their friendship.
Yeah.
And as the book progresses, you learn more information about their friendship, about their summer, the time at camp, and about the murder. And the book is told through letters and texts, interviews with campers and counselors, and news reports. So it's obvious right from the beginning that Kayla knows some things. And she's not telling everything. And you wonder, is it because she's involved? Is it because she's protecting Lainey? And Kayla questions herself, is Lainey really responsible for Jackson's death? And if she isn't, who is? And if she's not responsible, then why did she sneak out the night that Jackson died? And there's all these questions that float around. And the book has so many twists and turns. And you're going to think you know exactly what it is, but you're going to be tricked many times over. Great. And I think that the way it's told through all of this sort of like evidence really amps up the suspense as you're reading it to try to get to the bottom of this and find out who killed Jackson.
I don't know who killed Jackson now, man. You got me hooked. Okay, that's a good one. So mine, real life, is Sadie by Courtney Summers. Came out in 2018. And it's funny that you mentioned like all the different, like told through letters and all those different ways, because this one is also kind of like that in the sense that it's told from Sadie, the title character. It's told from her narration, but then it's also told through a radio transcription of the podcast that's like a huge hit in that world, called The Girls. And it's a podcast looking for Sadie, who has run away from home in a vengeful attempt to find the killer of her little sister. So it's like twofold. It's like, where is Sadie? And also, who killed Sadie's little sister? It's just super like engrossing and looking at how, like, you know, if you think about it, why is true crime about real murder so popular, almost as if you were enjoying just like a Netflix show. It's kind of interesting when you think about it. And, you know, so it focuses on the radio personality. His name is Wes McCrae as well. You know, at first he gets this random phone call from a stranger at the beginning of the novel, from someone, please help me use your influence on the radio to help me find this 19-year-old girl who's run away. And he's just like, what, are you kidding? But then he realizes why Sadie left. Like, she left with a pocket knife in her hand, and she's like doing this like solo voyage across the country. You know, he becomes obsessed, like he becomes engrossed. So it's about him as well, and like his obsession with this story. So it's really engrossing, and you really don't know where it's going to go, because there's actually some mysteries in addition to who killed Sadie's little sister that are kind of at play here. So, and I also just think the way it's told is really cool as well. So
I love that. I like when there are lots of layers in a suspense kind of mystery thing. And I think that that is what people really like about One of Us is Lying, is that there's all these different characters and all these different layers. And I think that these books would make great read-alikes if you are interested in One of Us is Lying and haven't been able to get your hands on it yet, or if you read it and just really want something else in that same idea.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, well, thank you guys for listening to this week's edition of All Booked Up with Cailey and Meg. We hope that you enjoyed it and that you can find some new reads this week. So join us next time.
Yes, and happy reading.